Oh, I thought there'd be a logo or something. There's not. Sorry, we're doing this live. Hello, everybody. The date, of course, is Sunday, November 20th, 2022. And as a Disney fan, you'll probably never forget where you were when you heard the news, the shocking, kind of shocking, I guess, news that has just happened, which is that Bob Chapek has been fired as CEO of the Walt Disney Company, effective immediately. And the probably the part that's actually shocking is that Bob Iger, the former CEO pre-Chapek regime, is returning as CEO of the Walt Disney Company. I'm going to break down this information for you real quick. A email was sent to cast members of the Walt Disney Company, and I quote, "Dear fellow employees and cast members, it is with an incredible sense of gratitude and humility, and I must admit, a bit of amazement, that I write to you this evening with the news that I am returning to the Walt Disney Company as Chief Executive Officer. When I look at the creative success of our teams across our studios, Disney General Entertainment, ESPN and International, the rapid growth of our streaming services, the phenomenal reimagining and rebound of our parks, the continued great work of ABC News, and so many other achievements across our businesses, I am in awe of your accomplishments, and I am excited to embark with you on many new endeavors. I know this company has asked so much of you during the past 3 years, and these times certainly remain quite challenging. But as you've heard me say before, I am an optimist. And if I've learned one thing from my years at Disney, it is that even in the face of uncertainty, perhaps especially in the face of uncertainty, our employees and cast members achieve the impossible. You'll be hearing more from me and your leaders tomorrow and in the weeks ahead. In the meantime, allow me to express my deep gratitude for all that you do. Disney holds a special place in the hearts of people around the globe, thanks to you and your dedication in this company. And its mission to bring joy to people through great storytelling is an inspiration to me every single day. Bob Iger." Of course, just a few days ago, analysts, most notably Jim Cramer on national television, I mean, that plays all over the world, honestly, called for Disney to remove Chapek as CEO, given the quarterly numbers and the places they felt that the company fell short as of late. And several days later, the board of directors has not only made a decision, but I think one that is pretty shocking. You could probably count, I would dare say, on one hand, if not two, the number of high-profile CEOs that have ever returned to a company after departing. There's not a lot of them that come to mind, and Bob Iger will join that list now, returning as the head of the Walt Disney Company. I now also have the official statement that the company has released to the public regarding Bob Chapek's dismissal and Bob Iger's return. I'll read that to you now. The Walt Disney Company announced today that Robert A. Iger is returning to lead Disney as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. Mr. Iger spent more than 4 decades at the company, including 15 years as its CEO, has agreed to serve as Disney CEO for 2 years, with a mandate from the board to set the strategic direction for renewed growth and work closely with the board as a successor to lead the company at the completion of his term. Mr. Iger succeeds Bob Chapek, who has stepped down from his position. We thank Bob Chapek for his service to Disney over his long career, including navigating the company through the unprecedented challenges of the pandemic, said Susan Arnold, the chairman of the board. The board has concluded that as Disney embarks on an increasingly complex period of industry transformation, Bob Iger is uniquely situated to lead the company through this pivotal period. Mr. Iger has deep respect of Disney's senior leadership team, most of whom he worked with closely until his departure as executive chairman 11 months ago. He's greatly admired by Disney employees worldwide, all of which allow for a seamless transition of leadership. The position of chairman of the board remains unchanged, as with Ms. Arnold serving in that capacity. I am extremely optimistic for the future of this great company and thrilled to be asked by the board to return as its CEO, said Iger. Disney and its incomparable brands and franchises hold a special place in the hearts of so many people around the globe, most especially in the hearts of our employees. Dedication to this company and its mission is an inspiration. I'm deeply honored. I think that's sort of a repeat of what we said before. I think it's just also in the official company release. And this just has a bunch of you. If you're watching this, you know who Bob Iger is. And so I know we're live and we can take comments and talk about this a bit. The first thing I want to say is we came out of the D23 Expo and a lot of people were not very optimistic about the direction the company was heading. And I don't know why. and it's well documented. You could watch it. And all the shows that followed D23, I felt an optimism for as a Disney fan, as a Disney consumer, that I had not felt in several years. Several years. Now, obviously, ourselves and Mr. Chapek have very personal history, which may or may not ever see the light of day. It's unknown. At this point, it might now that he's gone. But there was an optimism, and I think you just felt something was changing. And then the quarterly results were released, and Jim Cramer went on television, and plenty of analysts in print and digital media said the same thing, that whoever, it doesn't matter who would be CEO at this time, whoever it is, they would need to be removed. And the board, to their credit, did it. They finally did it, which is, as a lifelong Disney fan, as someone who loves this company, I've never worked for them, but I love the company so dearly and what it stands for. And, as someone who watched, I don't know if any of you watched it, but the new Mickey Mouse documentary on Disney Plus. I watched that this weekend. I just got back from Tokyo, and it's been a lot of really uplifting Disney stuff that has sometimes you need to restore the faith a little bit. And I think between D23 and getting to those parks where things are still great, and hopefully they can be again at the domestic parks. And for that matter, Disneyland Paris, what a rebound they've been on. So hopefully what we've seen happen in Paris is going to happen now with great leadership. We will see that rebound again in the domestic parks and the other parks owned and operated by the Walt Disney Company. But I'm in a good place. I think I've been thoroughly reminded of why I love this thing, and it's now in the hands of people that I fully trust to do the right thing. Josh D'Amaro has had my vote of confidence for parks and resorts, at least for the last several months. We've seen a big turnaround, and I think whatever was said at D23 felt like it was a move in the right direction, like trashing Harmonious, getting rid of Enchantment, all of those little things, bringing a Figment meet and greet back, all those things to me pointed in a right direction. And now it's nice to know that and feel like not only is Parks and Resorts in the right direction, but I think really everything will be. And is Bob only going to be there for 2 years? Who knows? Who knows, right? I mean, the real reason he's back is there wasn't a clear candidate to take the job right now. And I mean, obviously there's no one better to give the job to. I mean, Bob, the last resurgence of the company was when Bob Iger came in following the Eisner years, right? We saw the parks, that I still think outside of my childhood, the best era for the parks and resorts, for the studio, for the company as a whole, like those years right after Bob Iger takes the reins, you got to give people a little bit of time. So like 2007 to I don't know, 14, 15, until Chapek takes Parks and Resorts. I think we're really just in every department of the company, I think just felt like another golden era, kind of like the start of the Disney decade, where I imagine how maybe people felt, in the 1960s when Disneyland was doing all these incredibly innovative things, and Disney was dominating, the family box office, and yeah. I mean, it just this is an incredible moment, and one we've hoped and prayed for, and I'm glad it has arrived. I'm glad it has arrived. I've been told not to gloat, so I won't. We'll keep that for our comedy variety show where we can have fun. We'll keep this show newsy, but obviously, on a personal note, as a Disney fan, as someone, take away WDWNT from this. As a Disney fan, I am overjoyed at this moment, and I hope many of you are as well. And I think I'm going to actually open the chat and see how you guys are feeling, and we could talk about it maybe for a couple of minutes. I know we're pretty late in the evening. They caught us a bit off guard with this announcement just ahead of 10 p.m. Eastern time. For many of you in other time zones, it's not a big deal. But on the East Coast, it's Sunday night, it's bedtime, it's wind down night. So many of us get ready to go to work tomorrow. Not me, I'm at work now. Let me find the video here so I can look at the chat. I'll find it. WDW News Today, that's the name of our company, right? Oh, live. I should watch this. This looks exciting. Oh, look at that handsome fellow. A super chat. I did not expect that tonight. That's not what tonight's about. It's been a while since we as an organization, as an organized society, have used tar and feathering in public. I'm in for $1,000 contribution towards tar. Let's get some more. Guys, there's no need. Like, as a fandom, we have won this battle. We lived through those years and we made it out the other side, right? And we have someone we know has given us good years as CEO, back as CEO, right? I mean, and he's gone. That's it. It's over. He's out of the picture. He can't hurt you anymore. Something I'm gonna be saying this to myself in the mirror later. He can't hurt you anymore. Don't worry about it. Wow, 3,000 of you watching. Thank you for watching. That's not often a number we see for live, but again, this is a very very special moment in history for this company and the most special entertainment company in the world. So obviously, this means a lot to a lot of people. Let us give thanks. It is Thanksgiving. Let us give thanks indeed. Oh, the super chats are pouring in. Oh boy. Thanks for doing this tonight. Do you think Disney currently sees Josh D'Amaro as potential future CEO? That's a great question, but the answer, at least at this moment, is no. In order to be CEO, they really like for you to know every division well. And Josh has only worked in parks and resorts. And Josh has been great at parks and resorts, but Josh has never worked in the studio. He's never worked in the other sectors of the company. In order to be CEO, you really want someone that knows all those sectors, right? And so what usually will happen is if you're grooming someone to be CEO, what you'll do is you'll start to move them around to different departments for a bit so they can learn, right? So when Tom Staggs was working under Bob Iger, he was moved to parks and resorts in an effort to learn that segment of the business. And so that's what you do. So I'm not saying, for all I know, tomorrow, Josh D'Amaro could be shifted to another department. I really don't think that's where we're heading. But I mean, if that's the person they want to prepare, yeah. But somewhat selfishly, I think Josh is a Parks guy. And I selfishly hope he stays at Parks. Obviously, that's mean because I think he seems like a great guy. He's well liked in the company. He could be CEO for sure. But selfishly, I think he's a great guy for the Parks and Resorts job, being a homegrown Parks and Resorts guy. I like that. I like that more than, please don't give me someone from consumer products ever again. Please. Paul Pressler, Bob Chapek, we have lived through those now. And my heart cannot take that again. So please, I beg of you, Disney executives, please, never again someone from consumer products. Please. Thank you. Let's see what else we have here. Did I read? I think I read that one. It's a Festivus miracle. There are going to be some feats of strength. I'm going to start just lifting furniture up. Dreams really do come true, said Ryan. Michael was the one that said Festivus miracle. It's been a while since you read that. That was Fifth Rider, by the way, that first one. There's another one here now. Does this mean dining plans will come back? The whole Bob Chapek was not, as much as I'd love to blame him for anything and everything, there's enough real stuff to blame him for. The dining plan is, I think it's more a dining capacity thing. I think they're just still not ready for it. I'm sorry to burst your bubble there. Park Pass TV, this is amazing news. Thank you for going live. We're excited for the future. That's what it really, I mean, there's plenty of people, Diz, Twitter, and beyond, that say WDWNT, they're always negative, they hate everything, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna say this. We were ahead of the curve. I told you in 2015 and 2016, the writing was on the wall. You could see with charging for parking and all these other little changes that were happening, it was clear things were not good at parks and resorts, right? The writing was on the wall, and we saw that through. And eventually, everyone got on board, whether they liked WDWNT or not. Eventually, the entire community got on board with this guy and understood that he just wasn't right for the job, right? Whether it was Parks and Resorts, very quickly as CEO, he did not last very long. He lasted longer than we predicted, in fairness. But still a really short tenure, and he's going to go down as undoubtedly the shortest tenured and least successful CEO in the history of the Walt Disney Company, and absolutely nothing else. Again, like, you can't take his early accomplishments away in consumer products. He did a great job. That's how he got where he was. But from the moment he arrived in Parks and Resorts, just didn't understand it, didn't get it, and thought the answer was a very smart man, a very smart former Imagineer said to me, you don't innovate by raising the price of hot dogs. That's not how you improve business and innovate. And truer words have never been spoken. That is not how you improve the business. That's not how you improve profits. That's not how you innovate. No. Very, very smart man. Do you think Iger will repeal Genie Plus and reservations? I don't. I think those are just things you're going to have to live with. I just think those are things you're going to have to live with. I think what you're going to see is a quality change. I think obviously as a business model, Genie and reservations and all those things work for them. And so I sadly don't think those are going to go away. Do annual passes come back? Maybe. I mean, they talked about it recently. They said they could flip that switch. So maybe at least that happens. I don't know. That being said, like at Disney World, for this holiday season, Thanksgiving through the New Year, like park passes, they're all fully available, even for the biggest holidays. So it's not. Disneyland's another story, especially with Magic Key. But as of right now, park pass availability not really necessarily an issue at Disney World. Paris, still a big issue. They've got to fix that in Paris. Late Friday news is an attempt to hide news and not drop stock prices. What is late Sunday news to bump stock prices? Odd timing. I had this conversation with our editor, Katie, before we went on tonight, and I think number one, the timing worked. I don't know that they had this in place until today. Like, I think there's been probably a lot of negotiating and a lot of Bob Chapek sweating in his office for several days. Probably, I'm sure he heard through the grapevine days ago. I'm sure, like, when you work in, if I can tell you anything from doing this for 15 years, no one in that company keeps a secret, right? And so I'm sure throughout that building and throughout every building in corporate over the last several days, people have been saying stuff. So I'm sure he knew. And I'm sure they've been negotiating with Iger to see how this was going to work out, right? It's a really interesting, weird, it's a 2-year deal with the hopes of basically just setting up the company for its future. And it doesn't directly say it in that release. There's a lot of shots at Mr. Chapek in that release, which I think is kind of amazing, which speaks to how much he rubbed everyone in the company the wrong way. There's a lot of digs there, which basically it comes out and says, like, the company, Bob Iger was brought back in to put the company back on the right track and to prepare us for success in the future. And that's a dig at the previous regime, basically saying, like, yeah, look, things got rough, and now, now we're gonna clean things up. Clean things up now. I'm gonna try to keep up with these super chats. They're coming in quick. Do you think Iger will be able to fix WDI even after we've seen such a mass exodus? Look, a lot of good people were lost, right? A lot of really good people. On the bright side, a lot of those really good people are off working for other companies doing really good stuff. So like I said before, when that layoffs happen, you're going to see Disney quality and creative and creative know-how in other places, right? Zoos, all sorts of sectors of the themed entertainment world, zoos, aquariums, regional theme parks. I know there's a bunch of former WDI guys doing stuff at Cedar Fair, Knott's Berry Farm, all that stuff. I know we just retweeted Morgan Richardson, who designed a number of my very fancy shirts that I wear all the time, former Imagineer. He and a number of people that are no longer WDI are working on what looks to be a very impressive zoo project. These are Disney people, right? These are people born and bred and love this company, who are trained in this company and are out there doing that magical work for other companies now. So you're going to see a lot of good stuff in a lot of other places. Sadly, I don't know that there's going to be this big return. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Lake Nona move gets canceled and they do, they ramp up with some new projects and need to bring some people on board. That would be pretty amazing. That would be great. I would love to see people go back. I don't know. Do people choose to go back? I'm sure there's some of them who would definitely go back, but I can't speak for those people. But that's not. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle, right? It's hard once you let those people go. It's not a guarantee that you get them back. And I know WDI is a great job, but when you move on, maybe they move to other places. I don't know. I hope so. I certainly hope so. A lot of really good, talented people were lost, and if they could be brought back, that would be fantastic. And if the Lake Nona move could be canceled, so you can keep a lot more of those talented people that are still sort of just hanging on by a thread, that's the right decision. That's the right decision. I have optimism that may very well happen. Bob Iger doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who wants to necessarily do business in Florida following the whole DeSantis mess. Iger's the kind of guy who would, I think, put up a little more of a fight than Chapek would in that realm. Like Bob Iger's political views, I think people know them pretty well, and he would not make the Chapek mistake in the Don't Say Gay debacle, right? Like Iger would have just came out immediately and views, because that's the kind of guy Bob Iger is. Bob Iger, and he has beliefs, and the beliefs he believes the company should have, and when you have a company that has so many people of different backgrounds that work for you, you got to stand up for those people, right? People need to put themselves, I think, sometimes in the shoes of a business owner and the people you go to war with every day. And there's people at WDWNT of all different walks of life. And what kind of boss would I be if I don't stick up for my people, right? I mean, it's no way to lead. So, and that's not a political thing. That's just a people thing. That's just a people thing. That's not taking a political stance. It's just, these people are with you. It's like your second family, the people that work with you. You got to stand up for them. Okay, I'm going to try to keep up with these. Does this mean Chapek's VPs are out too? There's no other shakeups at this point. I mean, obviously with the new CEO, there could be a whole new regime of people, absolutely. But I don't think anyone else is, at least at this time, we don't know of anyone else who's gone. We have no idea. Sam is putting sports scores in. Sam, Bob Chapek was fired. I have waited how many years for this moment, and you're going to post sports scores in a super chat? Sam, you're killing me. You're killing me, Sam. Keep it for news tonight. This is serious tonight. Friday we'll party. Tonight's serious. I was supposed to be doing some online training for work, but instead I decided to open a bottle of wine and celebrate you tonight. I wish I was home. I'm not. The very nice people at Orlando Luxury Rentals have once again provided us a vacation home to come tour and review. This time we're at the Ever After Estate in Claremont, Florida. And of all places, I happened to be when this happened. So I'm here on location at a different work project today, and this happened. And so here I am from an Eat, Pray, Love themed kitchen, recording a show about the removal of Bob Chapek and the return of Bob Iger. It's pretty wild. I'm gonna fix my phone's starting to die. I gotta fix this power source here. There we go. Is that all right now? Yeah, cool. All right, we're good. And then kudos also to Jake. Jake is over at the studio. He ran to the studio tonight to produce this. To Jake, who will also be producing our 50-hour marathon show for Toys for Tots, which begins this Friday at 9 p.m. Make sure you tune in and donate. We'll celebrate all weekend. We're going to celebrate all weekend long this incredible, optimistic moment for the thing we love so much. Let's see what else we got going on. Shame on the board for extending Chapek's contract, which cost $50 million to buy him out. Yeah, I mean, Michael Ovitz was a similar story, right? I don't know if many people remember the Michael Ovitz debacle, where he didn't end up lasting long and collected a lot of money. And Chapek is similar. I mean, You knew once. That's the thing. Once you hire a CEO and they don't work out, I mean that's the way business works. You give someone a contract, you owe them that money, and they had no other. They shouldn't have extended him. They shouldn't have extended him. But I think the problem the Disney company is such a unique company. It is not like every other. In some ways, it is sadly like every other mega corporation, and in some ways, it isn't. In some ways, it does hold on to that creative spark and all the interesting things that made the company what it is. And that's the struggle. The struggle over since Walt Disney passed away, the struggle has been that fight between big business and the creative forces within this company. And unfortunately, the big business side operates like all big businesses, and there was no clear replacement. Chapek fired the guy that was the only possible internal replacement, and so they doubled down on that to keep the stock price from, you know, plummeting, even though it did eventually. At the time, you know, the board's job is to keep the stock price healthy, right? And so they did what they did. That being said, the moment finally arrived where everyone seemed cool with it, and then they also Bob Iger agreed to come back. So that for them, it was like this big, like, oh, you mean we get to get rid of him, and maybe the stock will even go up a little bit on Monday? That's crazy. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody. We're happy. The board's happy. The shareholders are going to be happy. It's as Bob Chapek himself said a few days ago. It is hard to make everyone happy, but Bob, I think we have. Couldn't resist. I'm sorry. I think we have. Oh boy, I'm catching up. Man, this chat is great. 4,000 people watching now. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Final straw was layoffs, then buying a cruise ship. It wasn't a good look. I mean, obviously the cruise ship was in process for a while, but yeah, it's not. He was publicly destroyed already, right? Like we WDWNT started the conversation before the conversation was cool. Back in like I want to say it really started around Pandora time because like we knew Pandora was the last project really that made it through the gates from the Tom Staggs era. And when the writing was on the wall when James Cameron gave that interview where he went out of his way to correct the person interviewing him and be like, "Oh, Bob Chapek wasn't involved in this. Tom Staggs is the guy that made this happen." And I knew at that moment, like the little hints all started to make sense as to how Bob was doing in that role. And then when James Cameron came out and said that, I was like, well, if James Cameron is going out of his way to be like, I don't like the new guy, it's not good. It's not good. And then obviously Toy Story Land's budget cuts and Pixar Pier going from what was supposed to be an overlay for an event to a full-blown project like that Incredicoaster overlay, and the nonsense budget that was given and how that project turned out, that and Toy Story Land and all of these things that got hacked to death. No, the writing, but everyone eventually caught on, right? He made it to CEO because the parks, the Iger and Staggs, I think that era made the park so strong that it took the world a while to realize that the product was diminishing in quality. And by the time everyone realized, I think Chapek was already on to CEO. And then as CEO, very quickly, the world between the Scarlett Johansson thing and the DeSantis stuff and the stock price dropping and all the way the COVID layoffs and everything were handled, between all of that stuff, it became very clear to people that this guy was not the guy. And finally he wasn't. And there was much rejoicing. Let's see what else we have here. Bob Chapek super chatted. You guys are mean, especially you, Tom. I'm sorry, Bob. Take a hot shower. It'll be all right. Ralph Pouton, do you think Iger will invest more in parks since it's only a business unit that's making the money now? I think they are already planning to invest a lot in parks. I think we've seen that change with Demaro. I think Well, yeah, they canned like the Play Pavilion. I think they're going in different directions, and I do think there's a lot of park investment coming. I mean, they just bought another cruise ship. They bought a cruise ship, a giant mega ship, to enter a whole new market with. That's a big deal. That's a real big deal. They're building another private island space. Um, there's a lot of project. Disneyland Forward is still a thing that's around. Like they still want to get that rezoned so they could do a lot of expansion in Anaheim. Paris is in the midst of an expansion, which now, I mean, the question I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Paris expansion now because Galaxy's Edge is off the table, and last we had heard there were Lion King and Avatar projects kind of battling it out to be the other land they build in the Studios park. Seeing as Paris is posting strong numbers as of late, and there's some of that expansion that's been sort of in flux, I think things could really be great for them. And I think at Disney World, like we were teased with Moana and Zootopia and Coco and Encanto and Villains and all of that. I think there's a higher probability that that all happens now. I think Iger is more the guy that's going to be like, oh, Universal's building a new park. We should build a lot of new stuff in Florida. Numbers are great. Disney World's cash cow. Let's do more. And I wouldn't be surprised if that stuff gets fast tracked. If that stuff's coming along a little faster now, the fire might be lit. Because Iger, let's not forget, Iger was the guy who I think pushed them after Harry Potter to really start to invest in the Florida parks again. I think he pushed Florida management, which Disney World management notorious for not wanting to spend money. Iger was a big that Iger Stags, that group were real big on pushing them along for New Fantasyland and all that stuff that was done at that time. Sorry, my battery keeps dying. I'm gonna keep restarting it. I should probably just keep this near me at this point. See how this is doing. Yeah, there we go. Trying to keep up. Wow, this is a crazy crowd. Alex Johnston, this news makes me so happy I can go to Disney again. Me too. Disney should have remained neutral in the I'm not going to get into that. We're not getting into that. Guys, we got to stop making things political that aren't. We got to stop making things political that aren't. Literally, it's unclear as a business what's happening with Twitter right now, and I simply tweeted that don't know what's going to happen with Twitter, but if this does fold for some reason, then we just gave people a thank you and told them where else they could find us, and everyone made that a political thing. And I was like, look, I have no desire to get political with you. Like let's not go down that road. Everything isn't a political thing. Sometimes it's just more cut and dry than that. Charles Glover, I've been watching for years. I know we've all been waiting for this. Keep going strong, Tom. It's a day we have waited a long time for. It's nice to be optimistic about the thing we love again. It's very nice. It's very nice. Do you think maybe you could put something fun on your desk to celebrate Chapek leaving, said Kay. I don't know what. I have to look around. I don't know what's fun. Wonder what incentives they gave him to come back. Money. I guess a lot of money. I don't know. I think Bob Iger had a lot of things he thought he was going to go do post Disney, and it was very clear that he was very much kind of stuck on it, right? Like after he left Chapek, I don't know if he felt responsible, but he kept jumping in, and eventually became clear. It's like, he doesn't like this Chapek guy. He keeps coming out and saying I wouldn't have done that. And so I think he kind of felt like it was his mess to fix, and he wasn't really doing anything else right now. So he's like, all right, back we go, right? I think Michael Eisner should go to a Disney park tomorrow, just walk around and point at things. We'd drive through and say, what? Michael Eisner has nothing to do with the company. What would that mean? I don't know. Will he come back now? Maybe we see the return of Staggs. I wouldn't count on it. Tom Staggs and a person who probably should have been named CEO by Iger when he was departing, Kevin Meyer, started their own streaming service, which I've heard it's doing well. So they have their own startup. I think they're pretty busy with that. And best of luck to them. They're both great guys. Do you think Bob Chapek will ever think about you late at night after he's gone? Well, seeing as he thought about me late at night while he was there, oh, I think so. I think he might be thinking about me right now. I don't know. Maybe it's probably more important things to deal with right now. But I'll pop in at some point. But yeah, I don't. Man, I mean, the king of doubling down, right? If we relive a little bit of our history with them, like the fact that, like, the guy had no conviction. The guy approved the closure of the Country Bear Jamboree in the Tiki Room in Florida, right? They were going to build a Toy Story marionette show. And I don't want to hear people, it wasn't going to happen. It's very real, and you'll see the art eventually. But enough people, I've seen enough at this point to know we were absolutely correct. But the Country Bear Jamboree and the Tiki Room were going to close. And when we blew the lid on that, and they got a bunch of letters, he threw a hissy fit and decided to try to ruin a fan site. Instead of just doubling down and moving forward with the project, because you know you're the CEO of the Walt Disney, or at that point, chairman of Parks and Resorts, it's your decision to make. And you're going to be intimidated by a fan site? Like, you made that decision to buckle. You buckled on those projects. You didn't have to. Like, you could have ignored the letters and everything. You decided not to. We put enough pressure on you that you decided the best option was to cancel the projects and then lie to the public. And you know, you're a man with that much power, and you're making those kind of moves against someone who lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Orlando. You're not fit to be. If you care that much about what fan sites are saying about what you're doing, you are not fit for that job. I'm sorry. You can't be, and you certainly can't be CEO of the Walt Disney Company, right? And we saw that pettiness. We saw that pettiness from him on the grandest scale between the Scarlett Johansson fight, firing the only person who was a viable option to replace him before the board could make the move. We saw him do that on a semi-regular basis, on a much grander scale and a much more noticeable scale. And that's what I said when he got the job. I said, now the world is going to know what I've known for several years. And it played out. It played out, and it played out faster and wilder than I ever thought it would. I could have not in a million years predicted it would go the way it did. He blew up. He crashed and burned in the most fantastic manner. In the most fantastic manner, he crashed and burned, man. Let's see. It's wild to think about an alternative timeline in the universe. Didn't have COVID, where Iger isn't available to be Disney CEO right now because he's president of the United States. Oh my God, I'm not touching that one. I really hope there's something stronger than coffee in your mug. It's actually just water because I'm not home. I don't have like a fridge full of stuff here. I wish I had wine. I would have popped open a wine. It was a good night for it. I'll have to celebrate this weekend as we raise money for Toys for Tots. It'll be a moment of celebration. I don't understand that comment. Changes you'd like to see versus changes they'll actually make. I just really hope it's a rebirth of the creative culture in the company, which is what happened when Iger took over last time. When Iger took over in 2005. I'm hopeful that we see that again. I'm hopeful that we see that rebirth in the movies, in the streaming content, in the parks. I hope we see that creativity, right? Because I don't know. I've seen a lot of Disney movies the last several years, and every one of them, I'm just like, it's close to that Disney feeling, but it's just not quite all the way there. And I think it's clear that the company needs a spark, and I think this is a moment. This is a moment for it. Michael Kelly, I'm glad we're here. Iger just had a great presence. I mean, he's a CEO, right? Like the guy dresses perfectly, talks eloquently, always opposite of Chapek, always the right thing to say. Bob Chapek, every time he opened his mouth, would say what felt like the most offensive thing to say to your customers. And Bob Iger just always knew the right thing to say. Always the right thing to say, even in a tough situation. That guy knows how to work the press, knows what to say to cast members, knows what to say to media. Such a Just a cool dude. I don't know what else to say. It's the least eloquent thing I could say. He's just a cool dude. Ready for the return of the cardigans, man. Ready for a new era of Iger cardigans. Bob Selfish Spoon wrote, Bob Paycheck. Well, he'll get one last one. Say Division, Tom came in the stream late. Sorry if this has been asked, but considering how Iger did cause some of the long-term issues the company is still dealing with, will Iger learn from his mistakes? I don't know what we mean by that. Do we mean the Fox acquisition? There's two ways to look at the Fox acquisition, right? Like they spent a lot of money. And in the end, did they actually need it? I mean, I think in hindsight, I think if I go back in time to before I've launched a streaming service, buying the Fox library feels like a really good purchase. It also, there's a big part of that deal that I think we forget about, and it seems so silly compared to buying some billions of dollars worth of library. But a big part of that is getting a lot of Marvel rights back, right? Like, let's face it, inevitably there will be Fantastic Four and X-Men and all of those things. Well, I guess Fantastic Four was Fox, or was that wasn't? That was, yeah, that was, or was that? Maybe that was. But either way, X-Men, right? The movies, when those are introduced to the movies, they're going to make billions of dollars, right? They're going to make billions of dollars at the box office. They're going to make billions of dollars in Disney Plus subscription. They're going to make billions of dollars in merchandise and attractions and all of those things, right? So the Fox deal in some way will pay off at some point. Has it paid off yet? No. And obviously they had, I think during the Iger years, there were some ESPN financial problems. Yeah. Do you have any idea before 9:45 tonight? I think I lost that comment now. They're vanishing very quickly because the chat is so active. No, I had no idea. I mean, obviously, when Jim Cramer came out on TV and said he should be fired, I mean, I was like, okay. I didn't think it'd be Sunday. I didn't think it was going to be Thanksgiving week. I thought for sure they were going to get to like the beginning of December if anything was going to happen. But then again, there seemed like there was 50 times that this guy should have been removed and he wasn't. So like I started to believe that it wasn't going to happen. I'm sorry, these super chats are vanishing so quickly. Hi Tom, what course corrections do you think Iger can and will make in the coming months? I think just not treating the rest of the company like garbage will be a good start. Having people around him that like him and want to work for him and are motivated to do good work because of it. People not feeling like they work for a soulless businessman might help morale company wide in a lot of ways. And I don't know. I think there are a lot of things they could do. Right? Could they stop fighting with cast members for $1? Stop fighting with the union. There's little things like that. There's a million little things like that they can do. That I think will put the company in a better place. Oh, here come more. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that the cast members are going to be the real winners in this change. What did Chapek do to cast members? Treat them like garbage. I mean, under that administration and the way that he saw the opportunity, tried to basically get rid of almost all of WDI between the furloughs, layoffs, Lake Nona move, all of those things. Like really tried his damnedest to essentially eliminate as much of WDI as possible. The furloughs and layoffs that they did at the parks. Remember like Bob Iger for when the entire salary, right? And Bob Chapek, for a couple of months, took half a salary, and then by the summer, when people were still out of work, took his full salary on again. That was nonsense. You want to work for that guy? I wouldn't want to work for that guy. Really hope there's something stronger than coffee. I'm seeing some of these again now. Some of these are repeating, I think, because I'm falling so far behind in the chat. Ryan said, do you think Joe Rohde would come back now? I mean, I think Joe's got a really good thing going, so I don't know. I don't know that he'd come back. He might be asked. I mean, we asked if Bob Iger would come back. I remember we did that news today where we said Iger could come back, and everyone said that was nuts. And we're sitting here now, right? So, anything. It's a night where it feels like anything is possible, right? It feels like anything can happen. Trying to keep up here. Do you think he'll make a deal with Universal to get the Avengers campus in Florida? No. Universal's not willing. They're not willing to negotiate on it. It's not going to happen. Yeah, Nelly, you kind of said it. Bob Chapek didn't like Imaginary. I mean, same as Paul Pressler, right? They just didn't understand why they spent so much money on the creative side of the parks. They just didn't understand why that was of value. And I will tell you, like every current and former Imagineer I've spoken to in the last several years who have all found WDWNT mostly because they didn't know where to turn under this regime where they were treated like they were worthless. And needed a voice out there with no repercussions. That's the reason they came and found us, right? The whole reason was they felt like Imagineering was under attack. And Bob, I held back from saying this a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys noticed when we did news today when Bob Weiss was retiring. Usually if someone's had that long of a tenure at WDI, I'll usually stop on the show and talk very sweetly about them for a few moments. But the general consensus among Imagineers I've spoken to is that Bob Weiss kind of laid down and let it happen. And so no one was really that upset when Bob left Weiss. I know there's so many Bobs. Yeah. So I don't know how to feel about Bob Weiss. But clearly the consensus is that he didn't fight for people. And when you hear that from enough people, you believe it, right? When you hear that from enough people who have been in that room, it's hard to not believe it. Mickey, Minnie, and my all November 18th presents for this year. Chapek, how you're in. Yeah, I'm good. No one has to buy me anything for Christmas this year. I'm good. I'm all set. This is the only thing I wanted underneath my tree, and I got it. I'll try to read some the super chats have stopped, so I can read some regular comments. Sorry to everyone, the super chats, they're bright and they're in your face. The Fox acquisition will pay off with Avatar. That's another great point. I didn't even think of that because my brain is in a million places right now. Avatar. People keep saying, it's going to flop. No one wants an Avatar sequel. That re-release made like over $100 million. A re-release of a movie that you could watch at home made that much money. People are going to go see this movie. Whether you like Avatar or not, people are going to go see this movie. I hate to tell you. There's a lot of spam. I mean, there are 4.2 thousand people watching right now, which is an insane amount of people. But I've been, this is, man, it's been such a fight for so long. It's a great moment. It's a great moment, everyone. And I love to see, and again, people always say WWNT Sunday, they like to be negative, they like to hate stuff. This is the highlight of the last several years for me, to sit here with this many thousands of people, and everyone is so excited and happy and back in love after so many years of reading comments. People like so many comments. People like, I'm not going to go to parks anymore. This company's dead to me. It's nice to sit here with a couple thousand people and be like, yeah, all right. Maybe things are going to be cool again. I don't want to be that guy, right? I don't want to be the guy that goes to Japan and comes back and is like, yeah, oh yeah, it's just always so much, everything's just so much better there. They care there, blah blah blah. That comes, when I go to Japan, like it's kind of this. It makes me angry, right? Like I love it. It's my favorite place in the world, but it makes me angry because you like the dumbest things. Like you ride like Roger Rabbit and Pinocchio, which are just regular, plain old dark rides. They're not very complicated, but they look a million times better than they look in Anaheim. Like you can see things are lit well, the figures move, everything moves. There's lights you didn't know are supposed to work on the ride when you go on in Anaheim. You're like, oh, I didn't even know that thing moved. And it moves there, right? And that's the optimism, right? Is that we can get back to that point, is that level of care and love can show up in these places again, right? I don't want, Disney World is home. I grew up coming here. I love all the parks, but Disney World is always going to be home. And if home could be more like it used to be when I was a kid, at least quality wise, I'm not saying like, no, they should never remove any ride ever. That's not what I'm saying. But if quality wise, it could be like that again, it could be clean like that again, and the rides can work properly, and the cast could be paid enough and cared for enough where they feel appreciated and want to be there, and that shows in how they treat the guests, and the guests are in a better mood because they feel appreciated. That would all be the most wonderful thing. That would really all be the most wonderful thing. I'll check this. This is actually charging. Oh, we're at 4%. Jake, I don't know how much longer we're going to make it. I'm trying to keep this phone alive. I have a new phone coming in a couple days, but for the time being, it's not really holding a charge right now. Get a celebratory drink at Territory Lounge on me, Eric. That's very kind, very sweet, Eric. Thank you. I hope Iger will change how the new building at the Polynesian looks. Zach, I'm sorry, it might be too late. I think it's about to go vertical. It might be too late. I'm sorry. Natalie Rose, feels like a moment all Disney fans can come together and celebrate. It does. It does. This is a great night of celebration. It's going to be, it's sort of not real at this point. I think by the time Friday rolls around, we're going to be on there for 50 hours. It's going to be 50 very celebratory hours of the direction the Walt Disney Company is headed in. But it's so nice to see so many of you tonight. This is great. This is going to hold for me. Still at 4%. I will stay as long as I can until we hit like 1% on this phone, and then we're going to call it. Which is good, because if not, I'm going to make poor Jake stay up all night, because this is a great moment and a lot of fun. Mike wrote, I used to take my son to the parks 4 to 5 times a week. Now we go 2 to 3 times a month. Let's hope Iger brings back the magic for AP holders. I think he might. I think we might see that sort of regime change, right? I think the other thing you got to remember is if you're Josh tomorrow, right, there's only so much change you can implement, because so many of those policies and things you want to change were enacted by the guy above you who likes to fire people who threaten him, right? So if I'm Josh tomorrow and I'd like to keep my very good job, I'm probably not going to try to remove a lot of those policies and procedures and things that man implemented, who's my boss now, right? So now, now I think it's the real test, right? Because I don't think Josh tomorrow has that weight on him anymore. So I think he can. I think the sky is the limit for him now. I think we could, by next Expo, if you guys are not all completely happy with the announcements by next Expo, I think we're in trouble, because now we have almost 2 full years between now and the next Expo, and a whole new regime. And I expect the world. Ryan, I don't know about Doctor Who at the parks. I don't think so. I think it's just a content deal. I don't think it's going to mean anything beyond that. We need a carousel of products designed for this event. Stats, said Hunter. I know. I wish we had something, but we don't have to. He's gone. He's gone. I don't think we even need a shirt, right? Like, wearing a shirt is just a reminder that he happened. I think the best thing we could do, we're gonna celebrate for a couple days, and then, You know, one more news tonight talking about Bob Chapek, and then we're off. Jake is asking me to sign off because I guess he could see my battery amount. Or is he saying at 2% I should sign off? We're at 3%, Jake. I'll take a couple more. Nelly said, I proposed in MK. We honeymooned there for the first time since 2020. We're considering a return. That's great. I'm trying to keep it. The chat just moves so fast I can't even read the regular chat. That's why the super chats are easier to read. I'm seeing some anti-DeMauro stuff. I don't know what you guys are we're talking about. I don't get it. I mean, I cover this 7 days a week. I live in this world, and we talk to all sorts of people. He's a good guy, and again, I believe, based on the announcements of the last Expo, I think he gets it. I really believe that. Obviously, we want to revisit that in a year or two. We certainly can, but I'm not gonna. This isn't the Chapek years. It doesn't feel like the Chapek years. I'm not there. I'm not there with you on that one. Do you think we'll see AP sales open up again? Eventually. I still don't think before the end of the year. I don't think that's going to change. Like, guys, this is a CEO change. This is not an overnight process. Like, a lot's going to happen, and it's going to take some time. So don't expect like by the end of the week, like APs are back and reservations are gone and any of that. Like, that's not realistic. It's not a realistic view of what's going to happen. Will Iger kill off the retirement community? No, I think they're still gonna move forward with those developments. I think those are still a thing. I think it's too late to cancel those also. We're still at 3%. Do you think Iger will roll back some of the anti-consumer measures like smaller portion sizes, retheming Splash Mountain is gone. Just, you guys got to deal with it. Like, it's not a removal for the sake of IP. It's a removal for the sake of not offending people. Just because you and I aren't offended by it doesn't mean other people aren't, right? I mean, as much as I love Splash Mountain, I'm very sad that it's going away. I can't in good conscience sit here and be like, no, those people should still feel offended. Like, it's not, I don't know. That doesn't feel right to me. It's not my place to decide whether it should stay or go. It's not a thing offending me. Those voices make me a little uncomfortable. So I get it. I love those characters. Don't get me wrong. Mark Davis, my boy. I love Mark Davis to death. I love those characters. I have statues and plush and all sorts of stuff of the Brairs in my home. Not because they represent what they represent, but because I grew up with them as fun characters from a ride, not the other half of the story. Iger set up Chapek for failure, and it worked. I think Chapek did that all on his own. Do you think they'll change their approach to EU? What is EU? Sorry, my brain is fried. It's been a long night. I'm sure that's something easier to understand. I'm just not thinking of it. Hoping Bob Iger will invest money in making Disneyland look like Walt's vision. It's super dirty and dilapidated. A comment in the sky, I can't argue. It's been, maintenance-wise, been rough since post-COVID at Disneyland. The one mouse. My coworkers at work got to witness me flip out with excitement once I clocked out at the airport. My stocks are safe. That's great. That's great, one mouse. You love to see it. Love to see it. All right, we are at 2% now, so as Jake has warned me, I think it's time to go. Anyway, we've spent an hour talking about this. We are obviously going to talk about this on Friday on News Tonight. We're going to talk about this. There'll be updates to the story throughout the week on the News Today shows. Obviously, stay tuned to WDWNT.com. I'm sure there will be a ton of little announcements regarding this as the week progresses. It's just the beginning of a very big change for the company as a whole. It's going to be a wild ride, and we appreciate that you guys will be along for it with us at WNT.com. And thank you to so many of you who have been with us through all the years of this and this fight to sort of fight for the soul of the Walt Disney Company, for lack of a better phrase. We appreciate the support, and it's a great night. Everyone, try to sleep. I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not, but you should all try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day, and it's going to be an exciting time to be a Disney fan again. Very exciting. So, thank you all. I'll talk to you real soon.